Once upon a time, this world was ruled by lizards. From the tiniest of chicken-sized egg-eaters to the biggest flesh-stripping monsters like T-Rex, there was a dinosaur for every possible occasion. But then, 66 million years ago, they just disappeared. Gone.
Did they though? I'm not so sure. I think some of them might still be hanging around, hidden behind fancy new body panels and nice interiors. Really interesting numbers and tech specs. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ben, shut up about dinosaurs. You're quite clearly talking about the Jaguar F-Pace SVR. You stood next to it. It's some kind of really boring metaphor about it being big. Wrong. You see, on the face of it, there's nothing dinosaur-like really about the F-Pace. It's an SUV. That's very 2022. It's got a 21 plate on it. That's 2022. It's even got Android Auto. That's very 2022. But inside all that new tech, there lurks something a little bit older. See, the letters AJ V8 are quite important here. You've got no reason to know what they mean, but they're one of those sets of letters that's really important inside the industry. You see, AJ V8 is older than the F-Pace, it's older than the F-Type, it's older than the XF, it's older than Tata's ownership of Jaguar. In fact, so important is AJ V8 to Jaguar that if it never existed, you wouldn't recognise the company as it is today. To be precise, it is the AJ133 engine, which is the same one you'll find in the fastest F-Types and the old XF RS.
But you also found versions of the AJ V8 in the XJ8 in 2004, and the S-Type in 2002, and the XKR in 2000, and the XJR way back in 1998. You'd even find one if you bought a Ford Thunderbird in 2002. It's a proper living dinosaur.
In fact, so old is that engine that it was only the fourth one that Jaguar had ever designed from scratch. And until 2020, it wasn't built by Jaguar at all. It was built by Ford, and Ford sold Jaguar 14 years ago. And not only does Ford not make the engine anymore, they've closed down the factory that did. Now, scientists have a theory that in order to travel forwards or backwards in time, you would need to summon up enough power to spin a black hole, even if it were possible or not. Now, I think they're wrong. I think you can travel back to the 1990s just by opening that bonnet, and then the cast of Friends will appear and you'll all have a Tamagotchi.
The throwbacks don't end there with the basic block of this engine either. Firstly, there's the size, all 5 litres of it. It's a whole litre bigger than the engine in a Cayenne Turbo GT. Then there's the fact that it's supercharged, not turbocharged, the noise that it makes, and the fact that there's so much lag before that supercharger kicks in.
I mean, how many other supercharged cars are still made today? There's the Ariel, no, the Exi, no, they don't make that. Anyway, you get what I mean. This might be one of the last of them. It really is a dinosaur. You know what? I love dinosaurs. It turns out, if you stick a big V8 into an SUV like this, what you get is a barely tamed animal that's been poked with a bloody big stick. In fact, much more of this, and I think Chris Pratt will appear at some point and try and rein us in with a chair or something. Actually, Chris Pratt might be needed at times, because, well, this thing really is a bit of a brute. It definitely feels like it's got a lot of power and a chassis that doesn't really seem to care what you do with it. I mean, honestly, it definitely can do something with it, but it's not its job, and it's busy anyway, so I'm not going to bother. The main approach to any corner in this car is that at all times, at least one of the wheels will have broken traction. Enter it, and with a little bit of too much throttle, you're going to be flying straight on like a toddler who's been let off the leash. Put the throttle on too early on the way out, back into play will come the rears. It really is a bit of a wrestle. Honestly, trying to get this car around any series of corners is a bit like trying to walk 16 dogs at once. At every single moment, one of them is going to want to go in a completely different direction. But I mean that in a completely good way. There might be 16 dogs on these leashes, but they're all Labradors. They're all really friendly. They all just want to get really close to you and see another person, and they're never going to bite. Weirdly, actually not very weirdly, the car that this reminds me of the most is the F-Type with the same engine, the all-wheel drive one, that feels like, yeah, it's all-wheel drive, but that'll only matter some of the time. It'll still go wherever the hell it wants.
Now, I don't want to sound like I'm slagging off how the SVR handles, but believe me, I'm not. Damping is extremely good, soft through town, but just about holding the roll at bay in sports mode. You've got to be careful when you do hit the throttle, if you've got lock on, but floor it at the right moment on any corner exit and you'll just hold on to a delightful slide. This is the good dinosaur. There's also the gearbox, which is an 8-speeder from ZF, which is found almost everywhere these days and is perfectly excellent.
Let's go through the numbers, because they're impressive. It has 550 horsepower, which is acceptable, but it's got 750 Newton meters of torque, which is monstrous. It'll do 178 miles an hour, which is fine, but 60 miles an hour arrives in 3.8 seconds. To put that into context, the old F-Type SVR did that in 3.7, and that's about 1 million times smaller. This thing is quick. The thing is, it doesn't feel that quick. I mean, it is quick, don't get me wrong, but perhaps 3.7 seconds to 60 doesn't actually feel as fast as it used to in the days of electric instant torque. No, where this thing feels absolutely insane is around 3,500 RPM when you stick your foot down and it sets off, ripping at space and time. Rather than that Diplodocus trying to get its way off the floor, it becomes the T-Rex really trying to chase its prey down. It is absolutely bonkers. Massive, massive fun, but bonkers.
Right, so a big SUV isn't ever going to be a sharpened katana. Driving one is always going to be a bit more like trying to hack at your opponent with that kitchen knife your parents gave you when you went to uni.
You know the knife. It will barely seem to cut through an onion these days, but the moment it hits your skin, you're bleeding profusely and you won't stop for another week. But the thing about that utensil is that it's been with you for a long time. You love it deep down and you never really want to get rid of it. It's been faithful and friendly and it's never really done you any harm. That's this car. All the torque between 3,500 RPM and 5,000 RPM is just there whenever you want it, and then you shift up and you just get another dollop of torque. It doesn't calm down. And then there's that noise, that incredible operatic V8 that, you know what? It sounds a bit like that moment in a football game where the home team has just sent through its best player on goal, and you get this swell of noise from the crowd as they all know something is about to happen. Well, it's like that, except rather than playing football, this is just having a kickabout with your spleen. It's absolutely joy-inducing. In here, well, I mean, it's a nice place to be. It's a Jaguar interior. There's nothing particularly different. There's some red stitching here and it says SVR behind me. No, wait, I lie. Jaguar says there's a sports gear knob. Whatever that means. It's an auto. If you want a friendly, fun SUV that's going to be a friendly, slightly demented partner for you wherever you go, that's going to put a stupid grin on your face and make you emit guttural, earthy laughter every single time you accelerate, this is the car for you. But does it have a place in the modern world? I'd like to think so, but I think the answer's no. And that's the thing here. If you love engines like this, if you love those classic V8 roars and the feelings of torque that swells, buy one of these. Buy one of these and look after it and hold it tight and grab it close. Because I'm afraid to say that for cars like this and big V8s, there's an extinction coming.